Hello, this is Ralph from Happy Dog Training. And today I want to talk about what I believe every dog owner should look for when it comes to the kind of dog training you select. And I'm not talking about what method, what tools and whatever. That's not where I want to go with this. I want to go to a more general concept of how you should look at how training should be approached in general. And people will disagree with me. I totally understand. But that is my view on things, and that is how I think people should approach training. And it was brought on for me to think about this some more by some recent conversations and discussions in the dog training industry about particular trainers doing the exact opposite of what I'm suggesting, and also something that happened in dog socializations that I do regularly. So in our advanced dog socializations, we remove all training equipment from dogs because we want them to experience other dogs without conflict. We manage that off leash and we manage it on long lines when we have to in the beginning. But basically we remove all training equipment. So these two dogs that came in were on electronic collars, e-collars. Some people call them shock collars. I think that's a very unfortunate terminology. I would refer to them as e-collars because they're electronic training tools, but it's not about those. So the dogs were trained by one of the larger e-collar training franchises, and basically the way obedience was approached or training was approached is the dog should not react to anything. Every behavior was squashed. The dog should not be engaging with the environment or anything else. It just be quiet and calm all the time. It's not a philosophy I subscribe to anymore. All fairness, I used to subscribe to that earlier years in my career. I understand where it comes from. I grew out of it. I moved away from it completely. I don't think it's the right way to look at a living being. But it's out there. It's been around. It's not an uncommon thing. It's actually a very common thing. But so these dogs were trained in a specific way, were trained with remote collars and basically ignore everything. So once I took control of the dog, meaning I put the dog on a regular collar and in a long line, and the dog now had freedom. He could do within 25 feet whatever he wanted to do. And there were other dogs walking around he could have engaged with. He didn't. He just sat there. He didn't know what else to do. He was afraid to make decisions. He was afraid to do the wrong thing and getting punished for it with his e-collar again, which he wasn't wearing anymore at the time. But he was afraid. He was afraid to make decisions. He was just sitting there and not reacting. It took me 10, 15 minutes to get him to engage with the other dogs and be a dog around other dogs. And that was then good to see that he was able to come out of that. But I know that he was going right back to the total control with his owners, because those were the ideas that they had learned, I'm assuming, from dog trainers. I don't think most people have this idea in their head when they get started with a dog. But that's the idea of strong obedience, as they called it. You shouldn't react. So, but the point is, he was afraid of acting. He was afraid of moving. He was afraid of making choices because the choices could be the wrong choices. And that is kind of the biggest problem. When you have a dog that has a misbehavior, or a behavior you perceive to be a misbehavior, you want it to stop. Maybe he jumps up at you when you come home. Maybe he runs out the door when you open it. Maybe he eats the sprinkler heads. Maybe he digs holes in the yard. Whatever it may be, those are common things, right? Whatever it may be, the dog needs to stop doing these things in your home because you don't like them. So you end up taking that dog to a trainer who says, I can do 2 weeks, 3 weeks board and train. We use an e-collar. We're going to stop all of that, and the dog will be no longer doing these things. So maybe you leave your dog there for training. He comes back and he stopped doing all these things. And you, hey, this is great. He stopped these things. Training worked. That's beautiful. Let me leave this guy a great review because the training worked. Dog stopped doing things. Now, what most people are not able to see is why their dog stopped doing things. It is not that their dog now learned to not run out the door because that's not how you should be doing. It's not that their dog now learned to behave better. It is that their dog is literally shut down, fearful of making behaviors because of afraid of being punished for them. He no longer knows what choices are safe and which choices are not. So he chooses to not make any choices and hope that's the best outcome. That's not the same as a trained dog. That's not the same as a calm and relaxed dog. That's a dog that's now shut down out of fear. It's kind of like learned helplessness. Well, I don't know what else to do about this, so I'm not going to do anything. And that's not the same thing as having a well-trained dog and a calm dog. But for the untrained eye, it may look the same. Because my dog jumped up before, I didn't like it, it stopped. Great training, right? But why did he stop? So if it's just about, was that effective? Well, yeah, what they did was effective. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are afraid of something and you scream hysterically. And the approach of the other person you're looking for help for is to punch you in the face until you stop screaming. Because you're now cowering down, you don't want to get beaten again. You stopped, it was effective. Was it the right thing to do? Probably not, right? So it's not the way you want to go about someone who's afraid. So if a dog is in fear, punishing them for the reaction that comes from fear is not the way to go. Punishing a dog for something he doesn't understand or she doesn't understand is also not the way to go. There is really only 3 reasons a dog doesn't do what you want them to do. Either your dog doesn't understand it or doesn't understand it fully or well enough. No matter how much you thought you taught it, your dog doesn't understand. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 would be your dog is incapable of doing it biologically. There could be a temporary thing. Let's say your dog's too tired, you're trying to teach something. He can't learn at that moment. He can't really absorb no information. Or your dog has a hip injury, you ask him to sit. Or your dog has a tummy upset and you're asking him to do something that's he's not feeling well up to it now. So he's biologically incapable at that moment. Could be temporary, could be permanent. And the third reason is there's no motivation. Your dog is motivated elsewhere. It's not motivated by you. You're asking your dog to do something that has 0 value to him, and you're asking him to do that instead of going after the squirrel. So there is motivation to go after the squirrel, but there's no motivation to listen to you. So in that differential, you're not going to win. Now, all these 3 things of my dog doesn't fully know, my dog is not capable of it right now, or my dog is not motivated, whose fault is that? It's not your dog's fault. It's our fault, right? So it's our fault for not doing these things. So if I come at a behavior that I've never fully taught and never fully explained with compulsion out of the gate, that doesn't seem to be the right way to go. Let's teach the dog first what we expect. So let's not punish everything that our dogs do because we don't like it. Let's focus on teaching them what we want instead and then hold them accountable. I'm not suggesting that there is never a time to apply a correction or use some form of punishment. There always is. It's not about that. It's not about being pure positive or just using food for everything all the time. It's not. But it's about compulsion and force and punishment should not be your first go-to. If your first response to every behavior is, I need to punish that, that's not a good way of thinking. So we should go about create clarity in our communication with our dog. We should make sure they understand exactly what we're asking at any given moment. We should help them learn. We should clarify the environment, help them understand how we want to live with them, how they can watch TV with us, how they read a book with us, how they get to be in the kitchen with us, whatever, how they're going to walk with us, how you be in the backyard. Right? We should teach these things. Spend time teaching them so your dog is clear and understands it. Once you've done that, make sure your dog trusts you. If it's about insecurity, build trust. Trust in the communication system, trust in the things you ask your dog to do, trust in you. You motivate your dog to do it for you. You help him understand and learn. And once you've done that to the maximum extent possible, if your dog's still blowing you off, yeah, you apply a correction here or there. But the correction you need now at that point is going to be very minor, and it's not going to be a big thing. I don't have to get at it with a lot of compulsion. I just have to get a little preferential choice for what I want. I don't have to squash the behavior. I now have a motivated dog who wants to work with me, who knows there's something to be gotten to by paying attention to me, who wants to be with me and work with me anyway. And if he blows me off because it's a squirrel I'm up against, yeah, I can use now a little bit of a correction, a little bit of punishment, very, very mild, at the very low end of the spectrum, where nobody goes, oh my God, right? Well, you can watch it. Yeah, okay, let me need to stop that. But we're going about it in a mild and fair way, just because we're holding our dog now accountable for something we've taught very clearly, and we put the effort and time in for our dog to understand and learn. If we are just punishing all the time, what are we doing? Why are we having a dog? Why are you having a dog? You want to punish your dog for everything? I don't think you do. I really don't think dog owners want that. The way I work with people, one of the things they all enjoy is that I'm helping them building their dog up to their full potential. I motivate them and their dog to work together. I make it enjoyable for both of them. The training becomes fun. It becomes engaging. The dogs learn well because it's an enjoyable process. And then with the clarity and with the structure and the whole learning process, I'm building a stronger relationship between the dogs and the clients. And everybody enjoys that. How far they go in terms of accomplishing all their goals is ultimately up to the dog owner always anyway. No dog trainer can control this. Even in a board and train, I can produce all the behaviors. If the dog goes home and you never practice, the behaviors will fade. That's just the nature of it. And if you not practice enough between training sessions, well, you're not going to get the same outcome. But people who, and that's also, I think it's understandable, right? So if you don't practice, you're not going to get the result. Everybody gets that part. But everybody who focuses on step-by-step learning and is dedicated to it sees tremendous changes in their dog. I think that's probably something all dog trainers will agree on, that if they work with someone and the person's dedicated and applies themselves to whatever is being taught, you're going to get the outcomes that you're looking for. So, but there's a process to it. It takes some time, it takes some effort, and it's not just popping the leash or pressing a button. If you just pop a collar and press a button every time your dog does something you don't like, maybe dog ownership isn't the right thing for you, because that's not a living being's, that's not the best approach to handling a living being. You don't do this to children, you don't do it to other people, you shouldn't do it to your animal either. There is no rhyme or reason to this kind of approach, especially when it comes to fearful behaviors. Yeah, I mean, the example I gave earlier is pretty extreme, but let's say someone's afraid and they'll slap you in the face and say, don't be afraid now, don't be afraid now, don't be afraid now. Well, you may be quiet, but you're not longer going to be more confident all of a sudden or be less afraid. You're not. You're just shutting down and stopping acting because you can no longer influence, you no longer understand what the consequences of your choices are. If you don't know what the consequences of your actions are, well, they're not going to take any actions, just hope that's the safest path to go. Unless they'll start punishing that too, and then you become neurotic. So, and that's all driven by emotion. Now, so when it comes to fear, all of these things are driven by emotion. Emotion regulates most behavior. Most behavior is driven by emotion. And when it comes to emotion, dogs and humans aren't different. It's all driven by the limbic system. Every dog has the same kinds of emotions every human does. Every mouse, every horse, every cat, every mammal on Earth, every mammal has the same emotional layout. The limbic system is the second layer in the brain that all mammals share. It's below the neocortex. The part that regulates emotions is universal in mammals. There's no such thing as a distinct human emotion. Let that sink in. There is different in expression of emotion, so we can talk about it, animals can't. We can think and reason ourselves into emotions or out of them. We can talk ourselves into our emotions. We do it all the time. Animals don't do that, but the experience of the emotion internally is the same, while the expression to the outside will be different most of the time. Not all the time. The shutting down out of fear, for example, that's a universal thing. That happens in every species too. That is learned helplessness. So the everything that's driven by emotion, every behavior that's driven by emotion can occur in every mammal. The limbic system is universal. You don't have to take my word for it. You can read books on it. There is Behave by Robert Sapolsky, The Worst and Best in Humans. Behave. There is Affective Neuroscience by Jack Panksepp. Affective AFF, not E. Affective systems, emotional systems. There's tons of videos on YouTube. Again, search for Sapolsky. Tons of things on the brain. The limbic system is a universal thing amongst mammals. We know that. So, and that's where emotions are. So everything that's driven by emotions applies to your dog, just as applies to us. If you can have the emotion, your dog can have the emotion. If you can have the emotional response, your dog can have a emotional response related to that emotion. Oftentimes it'll be different, but not always. Now, so example, a lot of dogs will bite when they're afraid. Humans do that not so much. So our default response to being afraid of something is not necessarily biting it, while your dog's response to being afraid of something may be very well biting it. But so the expression is different, but the internal experience of the reason's not. So especially when it comes to fear-based behaviors, like reactivity towards other dogs and whatever else there may be, for fear of trash cans, blow-up dolls. Now that we have these Halloween's coming up, where you have all these blow-up characters in front yards. That's what I mean by blow-up dolls, not blow-up dolls. So blow up animals, blow up dragons, blow up witches, whatever is in front yards at Halloween, that kind of thing. And yeah, so all these things dogs can be afraid of. And it's driven by the same emotional system that's driven by it in humans. So the point of building your dog up is teaching, clarifying, trust building, and helping your dogs learn and be comfortable before applying any kind of compulsion to the training process. It's better for the dog, it's better for your relationship, it's going to result in better and harmonious learning. You're going to enjoy the outcome more at the end of the day. So that's what I'm advocating. I recently also posted an article on my website and on social media. It's called Build Your Dog Up, just like this this video will be titled Build Your Dog Up. And it's about that topic. And there's more elements that I didn't go into in my talk here. But read the article, think about what I mentioned in this video, and I hope you find it interesting, compelling, and consider it as you approach training your dog. Build your dog up. Don't tear him down. Compulsion last, basically. Yep, that's it for today. Another car video. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time. Bye.